Well, there's people that voted for Biden that are doing it now. They're like, what did I do?
Right.
Like, what did I choose? Like, how is this guy?
Yeah, you just can't listen to an interview or he's saying some of the stuff he says that just makes no sense at all. It's like you can't listen to those interviews and feel like you made a good decision. I don't know how you could.
Did you hear what he said like yesterday or a couple of days ago? He was talking about the Revolutionary War. He's like, one of the reasons why we lost the Revolutionary War, one of the problems with the Revolutionary War was they didn't have enough airports. Yeah. Have you seen that?
I saw that. It's like, what the hell?
Like, pull him.
It's crazy.
If you had any other job and you were talking like that, they would go, hey, you're done.
A few moments later.
The same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports. Whoa.
Yeah, that's it.
Whoa.
What?
Just for the record.
Is that fake?
It's not fake, but he was referencing Trump saying that. Here's what Trump saying it in 2019.
Oh.
Donald Trump said something about that. He didn't say Jesus. He said a stable genius, and that's where the transcription.
Let me hear what it says. What did he say?
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. The Continental Army suffered a bitter winter of Valley Forge, found glory across the waters of the Delaware, and seized victory from Cornwallis of Yorktown. Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he fucked up.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like that's you can tell too. It sounds like a little different. He's like, you could tell he like messed up his words, but yeah. He was just, I don't know.
Took over the airports.
Well, that's the thing about media these days. It's like you gotta look into it.
I gotta say, Joe Rogan might have a reputation of not being a bullshitter, but that was some bullshit. Notice how quickly the mockery stopped once these two guys found out that the person who made such an idiotic comment wasn't, in fact, Joe Biden, but Donald Trump himself. Suddenly it was all excuses on behalf of Trump, suggesting that either being a raving lunatic isn't disqualifying anymore, or that these guys are just naked partisans looking for any excuse to attack Biden. Take all the time you need with that one. Like, I'm sorry, but Rogan literally says, "You're done," when he thought that it was Biden who made the gaffe. But then as soon as he realizes it was Trump, well, you see, it was just a mix-up. He just fucked up, no big deal, we all make mistakes. Rogan's guest even says this.
That's the thing about media these days. It's like, you gotta look into it.
That's the thing about the media these days. You gotta look into it. Yeah, you gotta look into it because if you don't, you're left taking your cues from these guys who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, who think that Trump's moronic ramblings were said by his opponent. If these guys didn't get fact check on Rogan's own show, then everyone listening to this segment would have thought that it was Biden who said that airports existed during the Revolutionary War. So yeah, that is the thing about media these days. It is distorted by uninformed people like this. And look, I get why Republicans and those in the right-wing media ecosystem are so desperate to paint Joe Biden as being incompetent. The first is that the actual facts present a much different story. Joe Biden is presiding over the strongest recovery in American history. He's added the most jobs of any president in the history of this country. Unemployment's been below 4% for the longest stretch in over 50 years. GDP is surging, with the most recent quarter exceeding even 5%. Inflation is down and real wages are up, and consumer sentiment is now skyrocketing. This is the economy that Republicans campaign on creating while failing to do so every single time. Add that to the list of legislative accomplishments: the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure Package, the Gun Safety Law, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the Reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, codifying marriage equality into federal law. Just today, moving to pardon every American with a federal marijuana conviction, forgiving billions of dollars of student loan debt, and fortifying NATO amid Russia's war against Ukraine. Not only is Joe Biden a competent president, but he's managed the most progressive and successful presidency of our lifetimes. Contrast that with Donald Trump, whose only legislative achievement during his entire presidency was a tax cut that overwhelmingly favored millionaires and billionaires, in case you're wondering why Joe Rogan likes him so much. He promised an infrastructure plan and never delivered. He promised a health care plan and never delivered. He promised a middle-class tax cut and never delivered. He promised record jobs and never delivered. He promised a historic presidency, and he did give us that, just not in the way that we expected. But here's the other reason that the right has to cut down Biden. It's not just the fact that he's legislatively successful, it's also to cover for the fact that Donald Trump himself is a certified fool rivaling the intelligence of a third grader every time he opens his mouth. And don't just take my word for it, here's a small sampling from just the last few weeks that puts on full display this guy's evident cognitive decline.
They were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding and imploding. And he said, it's very simple. He should immediately resign, and they should replace him with President Trump. As you know, crooked Joe Biden and the radical left thugs who have weaponized law enforcement to arrest their leading political opponent, and leading by a lot, including Obama. I'll tell you what, you take a look at Obama and take a look at some of the things that he's done. This is the same thing. The country was very divided. And we did with Obama. We won an election that everyone said couldn't be won.
Right, it's all coming through Iran, and Obama he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't even mention them in his statements. It's all coming through Iran.
Well, you mean President Biden. So, but right now...
I also mean Obama.
What do you mean?
I mean Obama and Biden, but Obama is Biden's boss.
You know, I was very honored as a man. Viktor Orban, did anyone ever hear of him? He's probably like one of the strongest leaders anywhere in the world. And he's the leader of, right? He's the leader of Turkey, fronts on both Russia. And a very big hello to a place where we've done very well, Sioux Falls. Thank you very much, Sioux Falls. And thank you. So, Sioux City, let me ask you, I'm for us. You know how you spell us, right? You spell us, U.S. I just picked that up. Has anyone ever thought of that before? I just picked that up. A couple of days I'm reading, and it said us. And I said, you know, if you think about it, us equals U.S., isn't it? We have a man who is totally corrupt and the worst president in the history of our country, who is cognitively impaired, in no condition to lead, and is now in charge of dealing with Russia and possible nuclear war. Just think of it. We would be in World War II very quickly.
So if you're wondering why Trump and his allies are so hell-bent on framing Biden as being in the throes of mental decline, this is why. It is nothing more than projection. They all recognize very clearly what Donald Trump's principal weakness is, and so in order to neutralize that, they're working in overdrive to try and diffuse that weakness onto Joe Biden. Per usual, every accusation is a confession. And look, the fact that the right is growing more and more desperate to shoehorn this narrative forward should tell us something. They all realize that the guy they're breathlessly defending is a rambling moron. They all realize that his grasp of basic concepts and facts and even words is tenuous at best. So they might think they're helping him, but all it's doing is shining a spotlight on just how broken Donald Trump's brain actually is. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.